up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Trust Your Boy Podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Will, welcome to the last waiver show of the year.
Last waiver show of the year, coming off of most people's semifinals weeks. Unfortunately, it's not looking so hot for our dynasty team. We need a miracle of miracles, but have one of the four teams that I'm still alive in. Looks like it's going to advance, and one that I've got a slim hope, but a better hope than you and I jointly have.
Yes, thank you, Devontae Adams, for that.
That's rough, man. Although the team we're playing, put up a pretty high score, above average. So
yeah, it was mostly CeeDee Lamb
score on his end.
CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. That's about the entirety of his team, I think.
Yeah, 140 in a league where usually 130-ish is kind of what you're aiming for to get it done.
Yeah, and like we were talking at several times, we were projected to win, and it wasn't really until might have been like the end of the Dallas game, and then obviously the Raiders game really sunk us.
Yeah, we needed Dak to not go to CeeDee Lamb nearly as much as he did.
Yeah. And Latavius Murray hurt too.
Yeah, a couple of letdowns there. But, it had a chance. Yeah, but, unfortunately, a couple of the guys that we were banking on did not follow through.
We would have been better off putting Greg Dortch in.
Yeah, as crazy as it sounds. He had a game.
I did not remember we still had.
Yeah.
Everything else, we were right. The Tom Brady decision, we made the right call on that one. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those situations where really nothing more you could have done. You weren't going to start Greg Dortch. Like, we could have done that, but nobody realistically was going to do that.
Exactly.
So yeah, what can you do, I guess?
Yeah, well, we will see. Should be an interesting offseason here if we follow through on our plans here for a fire sale.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. It'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be fun. But we got to jump into waivers, which kind of isn't a waiver show so much as it is like a start-sit kind of a situation.
I know, yeah, the guys that are left.
You're not looking long-term. It's, do you like the matchup this week? How bad do you need them? Drop the rest of your fab on whoever and go from there, right?
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. You do have, again, several pretty good options at the running back position for once.
All at that 50% mark or less, surprisingly.
Yeah. Tyler Algier, we got on here, rostered 49%. So right at that 50-50 mark, but he's got Arizona. So that's got to be, is he the top of your list or?
I think so, the way he's been playing. Couple other guys here that are pretty close, but I think he's kind of locked into the 1A, I want to say, or at least as close as it's going to get out of this bunch, whereas most of the rest of these are 1Bs that still have a pretty good upside. But I think, he's been getting the work. The team likes him. He's a rookie that's producing early. All that just kind of plays into his favor here.
Yeah, agreed. He's definitely the top option. I'm wondering what your second option is. I'm assuming we got James Cook here, 52% rostered for Cincinnati. Chuba, 38% at Tampa. I'm assuming it's one of those two.
Yeah, Gus isn't too far off, 41% rostered, but going up against Pittsburgh, it's a night game, and I think we probably see it bounce maybe a little back toward J.K. Dobbins. But, this last week, Edwards had a little more efficiency, behind him, and maybe it was more of like a hot hand thing that they were rolling with. For me, I think it's Chuba. Just the team, knows their identity, how they want to win, and that's by giving the ball to the running backs and running the ball. And both him and Foreman have been doing well. And rostership-wise, he's more widely available. So I think he's definitely someone that's going to be, on some championship-winning teams. He's going to get the ball. Obviously, we'll hope for some efficiency with him. Tampa's defense isn't bad, but they haven't really played super well against good offenses. You held Arizona to 16 points, but I think you probably were banking on doing that. So, yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Algier and Chuba would be the two I'd be looking at.
Yeah, same. Cook could be very good, but maybe not at the same time. Like he's more of a roll of the dice, but I think the next, like there's a tier break here, right? I think for Cook. Again, he's got the highest rostered ship. Not that it's that far different from Algier, but 52%. Other options we mentioned here, Will, we got Gus Edwards, Kenny Gainwell, Royce Freeman. Any interest in any of those? Or I guess you have to have interest if you need a running back.
Yeah. Yeah, if you need a running back, I think Gus is probably the one there because he's closest to a 1B. Gainwell, not bad. He's probably more of your passing down guy. He'll have a good amount of targets. I think he finished decently in the target picture here, but probably not going to get a ton of carries. So you're banking on maybe a situation where the Eagles need to throw the ball more and see if they get back Jalen Hurts, and if I don't know that New England or New Orleans is going to be able to score many points. So I don't know that the game script's going to be there for him, but I guess it's possible. So you'd have to wait and see. But I think it's probably Gus clearly ahead of Gainwell and Freeman.
Yeah, that's my take too. Freeman, just a last resort kind of option. But yeah, Gus clearly above Mr. Gainwell there. But the more difficult one to get, he's only going to be out there for 60% of you. His fab's going to go for a lot. So, Gainwell might be that free, 1 or 2 fab situation, right?
Yes. At this point, I think all these guys are, probably worth throwing in if you really need to, especially on the Gainwell and the Freeman side. But you're dropping all your fab. You're not, saving it unless it's like a dynasty league where you're rolling some of it over into the off season. I think you're pretty much banking on dropping all of it.
Okay, we'll move on to the wide receivers here. Will, got a whole list. Who are your top? Who is the guy you want on our list here? If you need a wide receiver for the week.
Yeah, I think it's John Dotson for me. He's clearly been worked in and is been efficient with his targets as well. Looks to be worth the first round pick that I think a lot of people were questioning him with. You had some studs with the NFL first round, and he was kind of the odd man out of what people were imagining was going to be there. But he proved it. He looks like he can definitely play in this league, and he's going up against Cleveland at home. I think Washington, they need to win to stay alive here in the playoff race. So he'd be my top guy. You have some guys coming back from injuries, some guys that, lower names but have been doing okay. But, Drake London's probably the only other one that's interesting here, but he's 60% rostered, so probably not available very often. But he got all the targets that I think were really available there. So they'd be my top 2 with London, caveat, 60% rostered. You're probably not seeing him many places. Dotson's still 23% rostered. So I think he's definitely my top guy to go after here.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. A lot of the other ones are very difficult to trust. Hodgins he's a giant, right?
Yeah, Hodgins and James both had solid weeks going up here.
Yeah, Hodgins
coming off of, I think, like good games.
3 of 4 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks, he's been really good. But a lot of those weeks is relying on a touchdown. He'll get, 4 receptions for 30 yards and it's a touchdown. So, he ends up in double digits and it looks okay, but without the touchdown, it looks real bad. So it's not going to be a high yardage kind of situation. But he's hot right now. Only 2% rostered. I would probably take a shot on him, just going through the rest of the list. I think I'd take a shot on him before James, Dortch, Renfro, and Dobbs, maybe? How's Dobbs been doing? He's a person I haven't heard of in a while.
He just came off. I think this is his second game back, maybe even his first game back.
Second game.
And second game, because last week is kind of really what hurt Christian Watson. And speaking of hurt Christian Watson, we do see he's injured and may not play this week. So that could help the efficiency and target share there for Dobbs. 5 catches, 5 targets, 55 yards in week 15. And then 6 targets, 3 catches, 36 yards. So it hasn't gotten in the end zone, but has gotten some targets at least, and you expect that may go up with Christian Watson.
Yeah, that's very true. So that could be a big win for him, but at the same time, who knows? Packers haven't been very consistent. Dobbs at times without Watson was great, and at times didn't really do a lot. So hard to say. Anyone else out of that grouping, the Chark, Renfro, Dortch, Richie James, any of those interest you at all? Or I guess of that group, if you had to pick somebody, who would you pick?
I don't know. I mean, I guess Dortch is interesting, but I think maybe that was more just because he had a little more familiarity with a third string quarterback. When you have what I think that people are expecting, Colt McCoy back under center, you probably have maybe a little more of that go toward those top receivers. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Renfro is interesting, but I think maybe more from like a dynasty perspective. It was good to see him back on the field and looking like himself. But I don't know that you can really trust him here in this situation, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe Richie James, probably Dobbs would be the ones I'd be looking at out of the rest of that bunch there.
Yeah, probably the same for me. It's kind of a weird situation where I trust like the running backs more than a lot of the wide receivers we got here, which is weird for this late in the season. But that's kind of where we're at. If we're looking at tight ends here, if you had Greg Dulcich or just you've been streaming in general, we got Tyler Higbee here, 65% rostered at the Chargers. Taysom Hill, the gamble that he always is, 55% at Philly. Juwan Johnson, 31% at Philly. And Noah Fant, 24% versus the Jets. Anyone jumping out at you here?
Probably Johnson or Fant. I mean, Higbee coming off of a huge game, but I don't know that I can trust him to run that back, unfortunately. I don't think you're going to get as big of a game for Hill against the Eagles at home. We'll see what the weather looks like, I guess, but I think a lot of that was due to the weather, him getting a lot of carries. So I'm not expecting a ton out of him. So I think Johnson or Noah Fant would be the two that I'd go after. And they're both pretty low rostership, so both on situations where teams have to win in order to stay in the races. So I think those would be the two guys I'd be focusing on.
Yeah, I agree. Johnson would probably be number one, even though he had a down week. He's been good this year. Be real interesting to see what happens with his draft next year. Whether he just disappears or, I guess it really depends on what they're going to do at, the quarterback position and what happens with that team in general. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But he would be top of my list. Probably Higbee second. The others, I don't know. I mean, Taysom, if you're in a hole, if you're looking at those projections, you believe those projections, and you're going to lose by like 20 points, then I guess Taysom's the one you roll with because he has those freak games. But, prepare for the 1 or 2 points too that could come from him.
Moves us into the streaming section.
Yeah. If you're streaming at the quarterback position, we got some names here that would look interesting on a championship title. We have Mr. Purdy, 36% rostered at Vegas. Mike White back again, 17% at Seattle. Mac Jones, 18% versus the Dolphins, and Baker. I once wrote him in his rookie year to a championship, 9% at the Chargers.
Yeah, some interesting options. Outside of Baker, all these teams are playing either to make the playoffs or for seeding. So you have offenses that are none of them are checked out just yet. Purdy's interesting because of the matchup. It's great against Vegas. Obviously, you want to make sure all of the weapons around him are healthy. Debo is dealing with a nagging injury, if I remember correctly. I think everyone else was okay. Did he? I don't have him anywhere. Did he end up playing this week?
Debo, I do not believe so. I didn't get to see any of the game, but I thought he was going to be out. Let me double check. Yeah, he was out.
Okay, so we'll see if he comes back, but I think it's a really good matchup against Vegas. Can be indoors, so you're not going to have to really worry about weather there. But it's going to be a situation where they're going to have to rely on the run game and short passes, if anything. We'll see if He unloads a few. So I think, we'll see what the injury report looks like throughout the week, but I think Mike White is probably my favorite of the bunch, with Purdy just slowly behind him.
I think I flip them. I think I would take Purdy just a bit over Mike White. Baker and Mac Jones, I'm just not super interested in at all. Yeah, I think I would just rather have the 49ers at my back with Purdy than Mike White. Both perfectly capable of, winning the game, but only getting 11 fantasy points or something like that. Both capable of putting up, strong performances as well, as we've seen out of both of them. But I think I'm going to lean Purdy here. But again, if you like Mike White like you do, I have no issue with that really.
Some interesting options here on the defensive end, Steve. Got a couple that are well within our roster limitations. We've got the Jaguars, 17% rostered at the upstart Texans here, who are playing much better as of late. We've got the Rams, 34% rostered Rams versus the Chargers. So, that's supposed to be Chargers defense, 34% rostered versus the Rams. Don't think you'd want to play the Rams there against the Chargers offense. You got the Commanders, 27% rostered versus Cleveland. We've got Cardinals and Falcons going against each other there in Atlanta. Cardinals 19% rostered, Falcons 3% rostered. So we'll see, from a quarterback perspective, the Falcons one I think maybe is only interesting if you still have Trace McSorley under center. The offense really wasn't able to move the ball very well. If that's not the case, probably not much of an option there. But any interest in any of these teams?
Not the bottom two. Probably gonna stay away from the Cardinals and the Falcons. But of the rest, I guess it would be Jacksonville. It's somewhat worrisome because, like you said, Houston's been suddenly looking like a better team. But Jaguars are pushing to the playoffs. They're getting better and better. So I would like to think that they're going to come out ahead. Commanders are kind of interesting. But I think I am personally sticking with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Or how about you?
Yeah, I think it's the Jaguars, maybe the Chargers, because it's, home game for both teams, really. They play in the same stadium there. The Rams are playing better for sure, but I think the Chargers need it more. So one's interesting. I think you probably got to roll with the Chargers here, though, and just really hope that the Texans finally come back to earth a little bit here.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. Well, that's going to wrap up the final waiver show of the year. So tune in on Thursday for the Start Sit show. Last one of those for the year, and then we'll be wrapping up and we'll be back on mock season, huh?
Yeah, mock season, and then prior to the NFL draft, getting ready for rookie drafts as well.
There's lovely predictions we make every year that complete mess.
Yeah, by the end of the year, look foolish usually.
Yeah, but we'll be at it again. So yeah, best of luck with your waivers. We'll see you on Thursday with the Start Sit. Until then, trust your board.